everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for video 3 in my series 1 Flower 8 Ways. I'm coloring this flower with 8 different coloring mediums. Today is Copic markers. I stamped this image, it's Altenew Persian motifs, on Nina Solar White cardstock with Memento Tuxedo black ink. That's my favorite combination to use for Copic markers. Before I get started with the coloring, I just wanted to show you how I choose my markers. I downloaded this blank sheet, and I'll have a link on my blog, and I just colored all the colors that I have. And so when I'm trying to select a color combination, I just kind of glance at what kind of 2 or 3 color combination might look good. So I might look at the yellows together, the green yellows together, the reds, maybe I want something a little violet purple, or maybe a blue violet. So I just kind of look at this chart to figure out what colors I'm looking for, and then I go to my marker storage to pull them. When I'm working with small areas like this, I generally like to start with the darkest color first. If it was a bigger area, I might color the whole thing with the lightest and then start moving in with my darker and medium colors. But for areas that are kind of small, I like to start dark first. So this is actually YR04. It's my lighter orange, and I'm going to start at the bottom where I'm going to have some shadow. I have the sketch markers, so they have a really nice brush tip with a very fine tip at the very top. So if I just put a little bit, just a light pressure, I'll get a very small amount of color coming out. So I'm going to do behind the petal just like I did in the other videos, and down at the bottom, and then I'm going to add some right here where this crease is. So that's my lighter orange. Then I'm going to come in with my Y15, which is my dark yellow, because these two colors are going to blend pretty well together. These don't blend so well together. These don't blend so well together. These are okay, but when I move from yellow to orange, these two seem to work the best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover over the orange, kind of in little tiny circles, and pull out just a little bit. And this will blend these two colors together, but I can still see the yellow. I'm going to pull up just a little bit. Same thing on this area right here. And one of the other things I forgot to do was this piece right here. I'm going to make it a little bit darker right there. This is my YR04, because I'm going to have a little bit of a shadow right there. And I'll go back in with my Y15, just like I did before. And I'm just barely touching it and pulling some color outward. Then I'm going to take my Y11, which is my lightest yellow, and I'm just going to finish it off. So I'm going to go over the edge and then pull it to that crease. And then I'm going to again go over the edge and pull it to the crease, or to the edge now of this flower. And just kind of connect everything together. Okay, so because these other flowers that I did with the watercolor, here's the other one, they really had a lot of dark orange and light yellow, so I really wanted that contrast. So what I decided to do, that's where this YR09 comes in. So I'm going to go and add just a tiny little bit of the YR09 at the bottom and at the edge. So you don't have to use too much of it, just a little bit to get some contrast. And I'm kind of holding it above the paper and just barely touching it, almost dotting it, and you'll get just a little bit of color. And then I'll take my YR04, because I don't want to leave that orange there. It looks like there's a line. I just want to blend it out a little bit, so I'm just kind of touch the edge and pull it. And you could go so far as to going all the way back to your Y15 if you want to, or you could stop here. I like to continue to blend, so I'm going to pull it out again with the Y15. And then that's where I'm going to stop. So that's how I decided to color with the Copic markers, to try to match up what I was doing with the watercolor Inktense pencils. So I'm going to do another one here. So let's start with my YR04. I'm going to start in my shadow area and pull up, and where this petal folds in, there's going to be a shadow at the bottom. And then I'm going to leave that white for now, and I'm going to color it with my YR09, because I do want that fold over to be darker. Down here, and then I'm going to color just to the right of this crease. Now I've got Y15, I'm going to go over the edge and pull it out just a little bit. You can see my area is pretty small. And now I have Y11, and I'm just going to finish that out. And now back in with the YR09, and I'm actually going to color this edge here. And then I'm just going to dot on the inside of that folded petal. Down to the bottom, and then in this crease just a little. Okay, YR04, barely coming out. Then the 15, coloring a little bit more to push the color, because when you do a color over a color, you're actually pushing that color. You're moving color around. And then I'm actually going to do a little bit of this Y11 here. If you wanted to lighten up the whole thing, you could go Y11 over the whole entire thing. That would lighten it up. So if I wanted to push this color down this way, I could just take my Y11 and push it, and you can see the color is really moving toward the center of the petal. So I'm going to speed this up and finish coloring these. I'm going to color them all the same way. So I know that probably seems like a lot of colors and a lot of work for this, but you didn't really need to add this YR09. You could have just left it with the 3, but I was trying to, be comparable to the other videos that I was doing. So let's move on to the leaves. All right, now it's time to work on the greens. These are the ones I've selected. These two, YG21 and YG23, are very close together, so those match. This G28 seems a little out of left field, I admit, but I really wanted to have a lot of contrast, and this in my palette looked really good, like it would be a really good green. So let's go ahead and do it this way and see what happens. I'm going to start the same way with the G28, the darkest green, and I'm going to do just a little bit at the bottom. I'm going to work my way up a little bit. I'm kind of flicking upward, very lightly touching the cardstock. I don't want to apply too much color, and I don't want to go over the lines into the orange because these will blend a little bit if they're still wet. One might bleed over into the next. Okay, so now I'm going to take my YG23 and again go over the G28 and pull it out a little bit. But I definitely don't want to cover everything, and the key to all of this Copic marker coloring is to not put too much ink on the paper because it starts to bleed over the lines. If you have too much ink, they start blending together too much, and then you have just one color left. Okay, that's my YG23. I'll take my YG21, and I'm just going to finish it off. And so I actually do the opposite. Rather than covering the edge and go to the outline, I'm going to start at the outline and move into the rest of my greens. I might push that G28 a little bit down. And I'm going to do the same thing here, kind of push into my YG23 at the top. And I think that's pretty good. I think I took too much of the YG28 out, and you can kind of see the paper starting to get a little blotchy, and that means I'm getting a lot of ink on the paper. I'm scared to put more, so what I'll do is I'll just dot a tiny little bit at the bottom, kind of sketch it in, but you have to be careful, and then just add a tiny bit of the YG23, and that's much better. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Okay, I'm gonna finish the rest of these leaves and I'll be right back. Now I'm going to work on these two leaves right here. I'm going to use these same colors. This leaf is a little bit more difficult. I'm just going to follow the same technique I used in the last couple of videos, where I'm just kind of working a little bit around this sort of thing that's coming in the middle of the leaf and up these lines. And this is a very dark green, so when I go back in with these lighter colors, it's going to be a little bit harder to blend with such a big area, but I still want to have that dark contrast. So I'm just going to keep going here and we'll see how. I'm going to cover the bottom here just a little, because I'm going to have a shadow at the bottom of the leaf, and I'm barely touching the paper. I did go a little bit over the line right here, and I'll show you how to fix that. For now, let's just finish what we're doing. If you do go over the line, the best idea is to let it dry first, and you'll get much better results in your fixing if you wait till it dries. So we don't want to do anything with it anyway. Okay, inside here a little bit. Okay, that's as much as I'm going to do with the G28. Now I'm going to take my YG23, and I'm really going to have to put quite a bit of ink over those edges of the G28, because there is a huge difference between these two colors, but I think it's still going to be okay. Again, I'm just kind of going for that high contrast, just like I did the other ones. So I'm going to leave some white for when I go back in with my YG21, which is a very, very light green. It's almost like a yellow. So when you add it to this flower, it really looks like sunshine. Okay, I'm not going to leave too much room for the 21 in these crevices. Okay. All right, finally, the 21. Let's see how this looks. And again, I'm just kind of going over the YG23 just to get them to blend together. This is actually looking pretty good. I think it's a little bit, you can see the line right here with the G28, so I'm gonna actually put a little bit more G28 just to get some fresh ink, and then I'll take my 23 and pull it out a little bit more. And again, you got to be careful here because you don't want the color to go over the line. So that's pretty good. I like that. Okay, so now I'm going to work on this middle portion, and I'm kind of worried about putting too much of this dark color, but I am just going to add just a tiny little bit at the bottom. The 23. So it's going to be mostly 23. And then at the very top, I'll have my 21. All right, that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to do this one quickly. All right, for the stems, they are so small, I don't have room for 3 colors, so I'm just going to use 2. I'm going to use my G28, and I'm going to focus more on the left side of the stem and where the 2 stems meet, because you'll get a little shadow where the 2 stems meet. And then on this side, I'm going to have a little bit in the back where the 2 stems meet. There'll be a shadow here. Very careful not to go outside the lines. And then there'll be one here. And then there'll be one right here where the 2 stems meet. And then there'll be a little shadow from this green thing right here. I don't know if what that is exactly. All right, I'm also gonna do one down here. And then I'm just gonna fill it in with the YG23. I'm not gonna worry about the YG21. Just very careful, and I'm going over the whole stem, so on top of the G28. I'm gonna add a little bit to the tip here, the dark color. And same thing at the bottom of this one and this one. And then I'll fill in with the 23. So I'm not happy with this one right here. I'm not sure what else to do except add another color, and I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna put some 28 right here over this crease because I really didn't touch that as a area of depth. So I'm just gonna add this in. YG23 on top. Oh yeah, this looks much better. Sometimes you just have to experiment a little bit, and you can always go over color because what you're doing, as I said earlier, is you're kind of pushing color away. So if I put this color on top of a different color, it's going to push that other color away and take this. There's still going to be some blending because you have two colors on the cardstock, but it's something that you can do. Anyway, so let's fix that mistake. I don't even know if you can see the mistake. It's just a little bit over the line right there. And what I'm going to do is take my colorless blender. You have to have one of these. You really need it. You just kind of push it. Remember, pushing color. Just kind of go back and forth with light pressure, pushing that color back over the edge. You might have to let it dry again and then push the color. Now, if it's still wet and you try to do that, the green is actually going to creep over this side because it's still not settled into the paper, and it'll start bleeding with this alcohol that you're putting on the other side. So that's why you wait till it dries. I've also got a little area right here, so I'm going to push that also. So I'm just going to color just back and forth. And if you're patient, it might take a few times to get it pushed over, but for the most part, you can do a pretty good job of pushing that color back over. It may not be perfect, but nobody else is going to notice it in most cases. Okay, so that is the Copic markers. I have the the Inktense watercolor here, so you can kind of see those two next to each other. The dry Inktense, I've lost it. I need to go create a new one. So at least we can compare these two. I think this one and the other one are pretty comparable, the two Inktense ones. So you can see there's a lot more depth of color with the Copic markers, especially when you look at the leaves and how this is, you know, I've got this darker color down here, whereas it's not quite as dark on this side. Anyway, so that's Copic markers, and I hope you enjoyed that. I will see you in the next video.